Hello everyone, my name is Forset Rising, otherwise known as Chance, and today I am joined by the wonderful TeaTime, coach for Apex Mission Impossible. T, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really good, man. Nice to meet you, and thanks
Pleasure.
for having me on.
Yeah, pleasure's mine, man. We'll jump into something simple, just, get the feeling down. How you feeling after day one of the open qualifier?
Good, good. I'm happy with the boys. They played really good.
Yeah?
We've got a lot more to show, and I hope we can continue to win in this long bracket tournament.
Yeah, the bracket is incredibly long, 64 teams. Going back to day
Yeah.
one, I mean, you guys clean swept both your opponents, most notably 2-0 Red Note. What do you think your team did right in that series, and how was the game planning like against Yushin, whom many consider to be the best, if not a top three top laner within the OQ?
Yeah. So this is like slightly coming into already gonna tell you about my background, but I have no familiarity with any of these players. So when I was scouting this team, like I saw a carry top laner, and just like we figured out this is going to be quite. I don't mean any disrespect to Yushin, but like with the lane swap meta, this playstyle doesn't really work that well.
Yeah.
I think next week in the lower bracket they'll have a much better time. Like for
Uh,
sure.
so Red Note is out.
Are they out already?
Red Note has been eliminated, unfortunately.
Oh, I
Um,
did not know that.
yeah.
Well, I guess they should have waited one more week. They had to hold out till next week, and they would have gone all the way. Like Yushin
Yeah.
was good for sure. I definitely like in the Gwen game he played well, um, and in the Camille game like draft was just impossible for him to play
Right.
as Camille. So I think it was like impossible for him. And with lane swaps in the meta, like the top lane carry playstyle is just gonna really struggle. So I'm sad to hear he got knocked out in week one because week two he would have been able to pop off and do more for his team. So that's a shame.
It was quite unlucky for him. Going into week two though, what are you looking at against Doban Viego as their weakest point there, and how do you feel about them as an opponent overall?
Oh, what do you mean is their weakest point? What do you mean by that?
Like, who do you think they're like? What can you target as a team to get ahead?
Okay. Well, I think we might ban Viego. No. No. I mean, we're gonna just look at the team. I think the most important thing is that we focus on ourselves. Like in a tournament like this, I think the most important thing is that us as a team are performing well. And I think particularly um, with the amount of time that we've been together, at least a lot longer than what a lot of these other teams have been. I think we're gonna make like our teamwork shine rather than focus on individual play. Um, but for certain, it's going to be just about making sure that like we're splitting them up and making them play as individuals while we play as a team. And I
And
think that's the biggest advantage against this team.
right, circling back real quick to you guys having more time as a team. How do you feel about that in general? I mean, with a lot of these teams coming together last second, especially due to how late the OQ was, compared to previous times. How what advantages do you think that gives you as a team as a whole?
I think that there are certain things that you don't figure out until you've like got over the honeymoon phase, and I think a lot of teams um, go through that, and we kind of went through that, and then we had a bit of fire, and then we've kind of come back to being a point where we're now really happy with how we're playing. And I think that sometimes your weaknesses get like glossed over at first, and then they start to get exposed later on. And I'm hoping that we can expose some weaknesses, and our weaknesses are going to be harder to expose because of the amount of time we've spent together and working on those things.
Right. I mean,
And I
you
think,
guys have been together for a long time, and your org as a whole has been around the open qualifiers for a couple of years now. How much do you know about Apex Mission Impossible?
oh, this is one of the things that like attracted me to the org in the first place, in the sense that obviously this last winter I was in NLC
Right.
coaching DMG, and then there's this team that wants to go into OQs, and as mentioned a few times, they've been like perennially top eight team. And the roster hasn't really changed all that much. Obviously, bringing in Phymini is a difference for the team. But like in terms of the roster itself, one of the things that attracted me was just the fact that it's a team where I think I can make a difference as a coach, in that we can hopefully me and Jad can help to elevate the players to not being a top 8 team and being a top 1 team or a top 2 team.
Right. I mean,
So it's about making
especially.
that step.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's about making that big step, really, and that's what we've been working towards. And a group that's been together a long time has that like potential to do that.
It's definitely a lot easier than a team coming in to understand your weaknesses. Um, how do you think you fare? Because personally speaking, I consider you to be a top 10 roster. Realistically, how much further do you think you're going to be making it, and what do you think the biggest roadblocks are going forward?
I think if we play what we're capable of playing, we're capable of going all the way. And I don't say that like lightly. I don't just try to gloss that over, but I think we can
Okay.
win outside of the bracket if we play to the level that we can. Um, that said, like we have good opponents coming up, and every series is going to be a fight, and there's no question about that, especially from this point onwards.
Right.
And you know, obviously, if we don't show up on the day, then we're going to go down to losers bracket, and I think in losers bracket we can go all the way as well. I would never count against us at any point.
You guys are definitely one of the, I wouldn't say perennial favorites, because there are teams in here like Tempest, like Near Airport, like Citadel, even though they are in the lower bracket currently, that are looking incredibly dangerous based off of names alone. What do you think about these top three teams going in to the winners bracket? Let's say Tempest, Near Airport, and Respawn. Some of these potential opponents that you may face near the finals.
Yeah, so I've been sort of going about this as someone who doesn't have much knowledge of any scene and really just dealing with it one game at a time. And obviously with that comes a couple of things. Is that like our next opponents are going to be Galaxy Gaming, which is also a good roster.
Right.
And then after that, if we beat them, we're going to be playing versus Tempest. So if we beat Dome Ban Viego, we'll probably play versus Galaxy and then Tempest. If we lose to Dome Ban Viego, our opponent's probably going to be Citadel. So of course, like these are all good teams, and we have to just play to the level that we're capable of. And if we can do that, I think we can take them on and take them down.
What's something that sets you guys apart?
I think it's the fact that we have threats in every lane. I think there's no team that has that to the same level that we do. I think we can carry from all positions, and
Okay.
I think that's like really, really important. And I think another thing is just our ability to control the state of the game, communicate, and teamwork. And I think that if we can do that as well as I know that we are capable of doing consistently, we'll be really happy. And it's just going to be about performing, really.
Yeah. No, fair enough. On a more personal note, tell me, T, what got you into the competitive League of Legends scene, and what is some of the things that you love about it?
This is a long story. I'm going to have to rewind really fast. So I played rugby a lot at school, really competitive, and I like skiing and sports in general, and super competitive. I broke my arm really badly playing rugby.
Oof.
I never really got back into it at the same level, which I always found frustrating because after my injury, I went straight back to training and got back in the team, and it just never felt the same. Like every time you go for a tackle, you hesitate,
Right.
and it can like make you more vulnerable to injury in rugby
It also
because
makes you
it's a
second guess things. You know, like.
yeah, exactly. And it's a contact sport, and sometimes that like psychological thing. And after a while, I was just more frustrating to play rather than enjoyable. And like I just found something in League that I could channel my competitive energy into, and that was the big thing. And then as things progressed, I got into competitive, and eventually I got to a point when I was playing at the level I was going to reach. I was never going to get any better, and then I went into coaching. And this is where I felt like I finally find what I'm really good at and what I really enjoy, which is
Right.
helping other people improve.
Is there anything you'd say to people who are in your situation? Maybe they're injured in trad sports, or they've hit their peak in League, who want to become coaches or get into the scene. What would you say to them?
I think just go for it, really. Like it's about being able to connect with the people that you're working with, and I think that's really really important. And just give it your all, I suppose.
Right. Fair enough. Well, what are some things you'd like to see get better within the scene?
In the scene, I just want to see more like of this kind of stuff. I think this kind of stuff is important for the scene, like having interviews and media, especially at tier 3 for NA. Even tier 2, to be honest. I think players need to get out there. more.
Something that has been being said a lot recently. Uh, let me ask you this: how did it feel coming from the NLC and EU to come help out and coach for an OQ team? Was there any culture shift, especially one that is much different than EU and NLC?
Yeah, I think players are. I mean, certainly it helps coming into a team that's been together for a long time. With NLC, it's um, at least the split. We're building on. We're going to keep building on the project, but like it's often changing players all the time and new rosters, etc., etc.
Right.
But coming into this team in NA, the biggest culture shift is just they already had like that kind of camaraderie a little bit, and I think that's been really nice to see. I think in EU sometimes it's lacking, and I think sometimes people in EU don't really treat each other as like teammates in the same way that consider teammates should be treated. Like I feel like teammates in sports should be considered like your brothers, your bros, and you got to build like proper bonding with them. Like in any sport I've played, like in rugby, in soccer, whatever, you've gotta be like bros with your team, and you're gonna play
Right.
better. I think that in EU sometimes we overlook that aspect and we just think about it more like skill wise. But I think at least I feel like that's more present in NA.
The camaraderie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely understand that point of view. NA has for a long time been very similar to EU. Recently speaking, especially within the tier 3 and tier 2 scene, I would say personally, we have a lot more people coming together, mostly because of the unfortunate situation of our region. but but people are coming together a lot more, and it's been really really nice to see.
Mm.
Um, I also think that point of view from you. Do you think that comes specifically from being from traditional sports? Because it's something that feels uniquely mainstream, and rather, it doesn't really come from esports, right? We don't see a whole lot of that camaraderie. We don't see teams staying together longer than a year, really, as a whole. Do you think that's something that should change, or do you think that that camaraderie can still work even if a team doesn't stay together that long?
I think that it's like something conventional obviously from conventional sports, but and like I think it's just something that esports just hasn't really clicked yet, and I haven't realized like, if you look back at like let's say 2019 G2,
Sure.
like this team stayed together for three splits, and like you could just watch and see from any video, any YouTube video, whatever, any LEC mic check, these guys enjoyed playing together. Um, if obviously eventually that team breaks down, and as all great teams do, right?
Right.
But at the time that they were performing the best, it was when they were enjoying playing together and they had that team spirit. And I think that that is so important for like any team wanting to hit the highest level. Like even if you compare some of the top NA teams, right? They've got
Right.
that kind of spirit starting to build.
I was gonna say some more North American examples could be the NRG run that happened a couple years ago.
Yeah,
OG Cloud9 was probably one of the longest standing NA rosters of all time.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so I definitely agree with you there. Is there anything you'd like to say to the fans or anyone in the OQ sphere or tier 2, tier 3, people from Europe potentially rooting for or against you?
Uh, Not really. I mean, I guess I'm part of a Canadian team, so I have to be really nice, right? Is that the way it goes?
I think so. I know some Canadians in the sphere who would disagree, but
Like my instinct's telling me to shit talk, but nah. I don't know. I think that the next opponents, if they're Galaxy, should be a little bit worried about playing against us.
you-
I don't think it's gonna be so easy for them. Like they have Ariendel. I don't know if I've said that name
yeah.
correctly. He used to be on this team, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we made a big upgrade in the mid lane. So we'll see. We'll see how the next round goes.
I mean, despite glossing over, don't pick me or don't ban Viego, right?
Yeah, of course.
It seems like you've
Well, we're just gonna
already
ban Viega and then that's sorted, right?
right. I mean, feels like you're
No,
just
I
like
haven't.
glossing over them.
No, no, of course. I mean, Don Van Viego is going to be an important opponent, and it's important we play one team at a time. Like I mentioned this, I'm for sure set on these guys. But do just have one little corner of my eye on the next one.
Right, right. As you should. All right. Well, is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we end off this interview?
No, I think that's it.
Alrighty.
Thank you for having me, and yeah, thanks.
Of course. Anything you'd like to shout out before you go?
Shout out to Jad. He's been absolutely awesome to work with. Like, I've learned a lot from him, and he's a really, really good head coach and a really good guy.
Alrighty.
So, yeah, shout out to him.
Shout out Jad. Thank you all for watching. I've been Icarus, otherwise known as Forset Rising, and this has been the Icarus channel. Bye-bye. What are some things you'd like to see get better within the scene?